got a story to tell you of a personal experience. My husband and I have been landlords in the city of New Bedford for 15 years. Started out as kids, married at 17 and 20, worked hard to save money, Brian, to buy a 6-family unit. And I don't know if you realize you need 20% down or to 25% down for bank financing for a 6-unit building in the city of New Bedford, so it's not cheap. So when you plop down $40,000 to $50,000 to buy one of these buildings, I mean, you're hoping that it's going to be fruitful and benefit you, and it's just turned out to be a nightmare to be a landlord in the city of New Bedford, Brian.
Why?
I'll tell you why. We didn't know Nelson Street. We weren't from the South End. We just knew it was a reasonably priced 6-family, and we bought it. My husband's a state-licensed construction supervisor, knew he could do the work to fix it up, make it lead compliant, doing everything we're supposed to do to try to make it profitable. And but we didn't know Nelson Street, and it's only deteriorated over the last 15 years terribly. And so we had a family that we rented to. They were with us for 3 years, no problems. They were no major problems. They were rough and tough South End people, but no major problems. They paid their rent, and when they had another child, these are 2-bedroom rabbit runs, they outgrew the apartment. They said they needed to move and find a 3-bedroom. The only thing they left in the apartment was a broken ceiling light from their son playing ball in the bedroom. Nothing serious. 4 years later, they called us back and said it's not working out where they moved. Can they come back? Do we have a place? We were the best landlords they ever had. So because they hadn't been problems before, we took them back. 1 month after they moved in, they paid the first month's rent. 1 month after they moved in, they stopped paying rent. And when we went to address it with them, they were different people, just volatile, hostile, disrespectful. And the cops started to be called to that property. They were fighting. He was beating her up. The boyfriend got arrested and put in jail, and he was gone. And we thought, phew, our problem's gone. He was the problem.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yep.
Who's going to pay the rent?
Well, that's it. Girlfriend, not working, home with the 2 babies. So there's a program out there called Home Base. So I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it pays the first, last security, and the government gives them $8,000 out of our taxpayer dollars to pay first, last security, and the remainder of that $8,000 goes to pay their rent for a year. So whatever's left pays all their rent for the year. So I hooked her up with that program, with that caseworker. She was already a tenant. They didn't need to pay first, last, and security, but they were going to pay us all of our back rent that these people owed us. So thought, oh, great, everything is going to be good again. Nope. To our shock, it wasn't just him. We didn't we were naive. We didn't know heroin addiction. We didn't know the signs of heroin addiction. We just knew something had changed in these people. They weren't the same people that they were when we had first rented to them. All hell broke loose after he went to jail. She started prostituting out of our building on Nelson Street. Steady stream of guys in and out of there. Drug dealers were now present at that building. From owning a house on Nelson Street all these years, you get to know the characters who walk up and down the street. And I knew who some of the drug dealers were. I started to see their presence at the building, wild parties, cops being called. So we had to start eviction proceedings against her. Went to housing court, started the whole thing, and guess what? The caseworker for that home-based program calls me and says, you and your husband are not going to get your back rent now. We're going to give her the $8,000 for first, last security and to pay her rent for the next year at another building because you're evicting her.
Unbelievable.
So I said, how do you sleep at night? I said, I hooked her up with your program. I've gone without rent now for 5 months waiting for this money to come through, and you're going to bless her for screwing her landlords, and what are you teaching her in the process? I said, I hope you can sleep nights. So I had to go through with this eviction. Got the execution for eviction, Brian. It takes a while. And lo and behold, she doesn't move out.
I had one of those.
Yep, doesn't move out. So guess what? Did you know in this wonderful state of Massachusetts who makes these crazy laws? I have no idea. But it's the landlord who has to pay for the move-out.
Yep.
They have to pay for those move-in people to pack up all of their garbage, and you have to pay for the first 3 months to store all their junk.
You sure do.
And it cost us $1,200 to move her out. The mayor, he's not for getting these people out, and there's something wrong. The system is broken because it gets worse. You think it can't get worse? It gets worse. The day of the move-out, we had to hire a constable to supervise the move-out. More money out of your pocket. You have to have a constable there, right?
Yes.
You got to be ready to change the locks with a locksmith. That day, the constable comes to my house with the paperwork, and he says, I don't have good news for you. I said, what do you mean? I just paid all this money. You moved her out. He said, her things are out, but she's still in your building. I said, you were supposed to serve her a do not trespass. And he said, I did. And your tenant next door in the other apartment in your building opened up her door and said, come stay with me. He said, there's nothing I can do. So I called the captain of the South End Police Station. He said, we do not enforce do not trespasses. Told him brought my paperwork down to the South End Police Station. The captain looked at me and said, I cannot enforce that eviction or that do not trespass.
That's it. That is the sheriff's. That's the sheriff's domain.
I told them what happened, and I said, you want problem tenants out of our buildings. We did everything we were supposed to do, and she's still there. What are you going to do for us now to get her out? They said, there's nothing we can do. I called Southeastern Housing Court and told them, and they said, the captain of the South End Police Station is wrong, the constable was wrong, and the mayor's office is wrong. They should have all enforced that do not trespass. You paid for that eviction, you paid for that move out, and they will not back us landlords. He wants to keep fining us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing yesterday.
Well, he wants to go after absentee landlords,
right.
Those that don't live in the city. You live in the city, right? What I'm trying to get at here is it's not just absentee landlord. You are somebody who lives in the city.
Yes, 10
all
minutes
of
away.
These apartments are littered with a bunch of crappy tenants.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
It's the tenant, it's not the landlord.